Okay, I guess we're on.
We're good to go? All right. I want to welcome everybody to tonight's regular council meeting, Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. And like I said, I want to call the regular meeting of the Sturgis City Council to order. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer, please. We have Dusty here to do our prayer for the evening.
All right, let's pray. Lord, once again, we just thank you for an opportunity to gather and for the business of our city. We pray for our council tonight and leaders here in our community that make decisions for the best of our community. So we just ask for wisdom and discernment and your guidance as we discuss these agenda items over the next several minutes. And we just thank you, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Motion.
I'll second.
All of those in approval, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All right, item number 4 will be announcements and praise. Councilor Thompson?
I have that, Mr. Vice President. Sturgis Meals on Wheels Winter Warmth Food Drive is underway starting today. They'll go through Saturday. You can donate non-perishable food to fill food boxes for senior citizens. They're accepting non-perishable. Do you feel in that category at all anymore? They're accepting non-perishable food items all week at the Sturgis Kitchen from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's at 2340 East Avenue, Heritage Acres. And we've got a box here at City Hall in the lobby near the finance office. Then on Wednesday, tomorrow, the Planning Commission meeting will be held at City Hall Chambers. That'll start at 5:30. Also on Wednesday, Music on Main and the Community Appreciation Picnic. Harley-Davidson Rally Point, a free barbecue meal, starts at 5, followed by live music featuring the Dave Martinson Big Band at 6. That's tomorrow night at 6. Thursday, Armchair Travelers Book Club at noon at the Sturgis Public Library's Lushbaugh Room. Then on Saturday, Sturgis Outdoors is sponsoring an intro to fly fishing at Lions Club Park, the pond at 9 o'clock until 11 in the morning. That's on Saturday. Sunday, the Sturgis Library will be hosting a full moon hike at 7 o'clock p.m. You can meet at Sturgis Brown High School parking lot. It's a gentle 3-mile loop under the glow of the full moon. Thursday, September 11th, Sturgis Area Arts Council. That's at 2:30 in the afternoon on Thursday, September 11th in the Lushbaugh Room here at the Sturgis Public Library. Also on Thursday, September 11th, we're talking next week, the 9/11 Memorial and Patriot Day Ceremony, 4 p.m. at the Sturgis Vets Club. Spaghetti dinner to follow with proceeds going to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. And thank you for putting that together, Deb.
Do we have any announcement or praise from the gallery? All right, with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, non-agenda items that come before the council. Does council have any that they want to share? Anybody from the galley? All right. With that, we'll move on to item number 6, department updates, and Aaron's going to give a report for, I forget what it was for sure, but.
We're just talking about, American Legal, the recodification project that we've been working on. We're going to have set up our first meeting for the ordinance committee next week. I know we have some folks are going to be gone after Wednesday, so we'll try to set that up between Monday and Wednesday. And just a reminder who's all on that committee. You got Councilor Kopp, Councilor Jones, Councilor Thompson, and Councilor Blakeman from the council, and then from the 2 at large is Steve Enders and Bob Havila. So again, we'll work with Eric Davis. We'll figure out a date and time, location, and start communicating with all 6 of you so we can have that first kickoff meeting for the ordinance committee. Pending your questions.
You didn't give a date necessarily, is that right?
Somewhere between Monday and Wednesday is what we're going to
Just
shoot
be
for.
alert.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we'll move on to number 7, agenda item, mayor's report. And on this, we have some payroll for, looks like the street department, some umpires, refs, EMT and ambulance. Anybody have any questions or anybody want to discuss items in the mayor's report? Anybody in the crowd? With that, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
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 Those opposed, no? We'll move on to item number 8, consider the consent agenda. Is there any items on here that council would like to pull and discuss? We have some road closures for the homecoming parade, use of Harley-Davidson Point for the homecoming parade, after the parade for the middle school choir, the First Interstate Bank food truck food drive, some leases out at the airport. Anybody in the crowd have any questions, comments? Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor, say yes.
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 Those opposed, no. Item number 9, approval of the claims. Did everybody have a chance to go through these? Anybody have any questions or comments, concerns?
We do, Mr. President, do have one correction. It's on page 8 of the claims, under airport. Towards the bottom, there's Dooley's Petroleum, Inc. This is for fuel for $15,850. There was some confusion. They sent us a bill, and then the next day they sent us a credit. And what happened that they had actually provided us a bill that was supposed to go to some other entity. And when they were putting in the invoice, they saw that last one credit, didn't see that it was a credit on it, thought it was an actual invoice. It wasn't. So that one request, once you approve this claim, have that with that one removed.
Which one is that? That's the second one?
Yeah, the
Okay.
$15,850.
Thank you, Aaron. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Okay.
I don't have the stuff in front of me, except there's an invoice for the Legends for $19,500. And I asked Ann, she provided the invoice for me, but Lance, is that one you could help with? This is a sales and marketing, Legend sales and marketing for $19,500. And I'm assuming somebody's contract from years ago carries forward as long as the account they sold is paying, and that must be the case.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, Councilor Thompson, that's correct. Legends Marketing was our marketing agency of record for sponsorships and exhibitors starting in 2013. That agreement ran through September 1 of 2016. So what you see are residuals for contracts that they provided, delivered to the city during their term.
So, do you know? Can you tell me who that was for? What sales accounts, or what businesses?
I'm sorry, that is a confidential agreement. I can't explain that, but the terms of it were confidential.
Just one account?
There is just one that remains there, yes.
Okay, so is that one? There will be many of these contracts that are done as of this year, and some into next year, I understand. But we're about finished with the existing contracts. So will that then carry forward? Because I assume this account is still on. Somebody still has to take care of it, and I'm assuming that's probably you.
At some point, yes, we will
Okay.
run the term of all those agreements.
Okay, so then I'll have to start over with perhaps a new salesperson or something.
And Councilor Thompson, I can add a little bit to this also. I mean, we did budget for this in our appropriations last year for this amount. This is part of those residuals when we took it from SMRI and some of those type of things. Based on the research I saw, Lance, that ends in 2025. This should be our last residual payment based on the contract that I saw for Legends. But we've been paying this now probably, like you said, since 2016,
2013.
2013. So from everything I've seen so far in research I've seen, Councilor Thompson, is that it ends this year. But it was a part of our appropriations back in 2024, getting ready for 2025.
I guess I bring that up, Mr. Vice President, because I think that was one of the things that most of us on the council disagreed with, the secrecy of those terms. And I would like the public to know that we're still seeking a change in that, but this one is an old account. So I can tell you from sales training that I've done in the past that this is not unusual to have an account that has, in this case, almost 10 years ago, they're still getting commission. But as long as the account is paying, we're filling our end and they're filling their end. And you're taking care, you've got to take care of the account.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to add, talking about, particularly with this council and the mayor about the change in terms of moving away from that confidentiality. Prior to the rally, we did have an opportunity possibly to get an annual sponsorship for this particular year. That probably would have netted probably a little bit more than $100,000. We weren't able to do it because from our perspective, we told them that, any contract that we enter into, it has to be a public document. Based on some research, there are some things that can be redacted. For example, some trade secrets, like if you trying to sponsor Bush Beans, right? Their secret sauce is a trade secret. But if they paid us, $50,000 to sponsor them, that is not a trade secret based on what we're finding and looking at it from an open records perspective. So we have had an opportunity, and again, they were not willing to do it. They felt that anything that they paid to the city of Sturgis for sponsorship was a trade secret. It allowed maybe their competitors to get an understanding of what they're paying and maybe kind of took away some of their competitive advantage. So we're working through to determine what our long-term solution is going to be when it comes down to sponsorships, because at the end of the day, we have to stay true to the open records laws for South Dakota law. And we also got to find a medium way for them to be able to enter into sponsorship. We are working on some options. I know we socialized that with some of you, most of you. We are working on several options out there that we can consider here in the near term. Obviously we'd like to get that decision sometime later in this year so we can implement it and be ready for the 86th rally. But again, we have had opportunities to have sponsorships, but the fact that we couldn't make them an open record, that's why we didn't have that sponsorship and, get that, whatever that money would have been. It was more law and do it right.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Aaron. Do I have a motion for the claims minus the $15,850?
No, motion to approve minus the $15,850 for Dooley's Petroleum, which, if my math is correct, puts the total at $299,302 and 15 cents.
Second.
All those approve?
Aye.
Yes.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. All righty. Item number 10, public hearings. 10-1, consider to approve resolution 2025-31 for Farmers Union Insurance Bowling Tournament, street closure, and open container. And we have Robin here to discuss this for us.
So Max at Sturgis Strikers came to me and he filled out an application. They are doing a bowling tournament. It's the Farmers Union Insurance Tournament. It's going to be a weekend-long thing, so it would be from September 12th through the 14th. They would like to close off the street from the alleyway there in front of the bowling alley to not quite to Lizelle, because they need to leave so the knuckle people can get in and out of that entryway. So it would be just basically that right there in front of the bowling alley. They are going to use some of our bouncy houses. They're going to have some kids' games. They're going to do an open container, hopefully. So the times on that, I know the street, they'd like to keep the street closed from 2 p.m. on Friday, noon on Friday, until around 2 p.m. on Sunday, only because those bouncy houses are going to be out there in the middle of the street. They don't want to have to move them in every night. They're heavy and they're big. So the open container, they're only asking for Friday and Saturday from noon to 10, I believe, is when they were asking for that. I thought Max was going to be here, but he is not. So if you guys have any questions, hopefully I can answer them.
I guess I have Rick and Chief, do you guys have a problem with that street closure? All good? Okay, thank you.
And Max said they'll be taking care, I know Rick was gonna drop off the panels, and Max is aware that he'll have to put them out and he'll have to move them out. They're just gonna take the trailer down there, it sounds like. So he'll have people there to take care of that, so Public Works doesn't have to do it.
Robin, may I ask, and sometimes we take this for granted, you said our bouncy houses, the city of Sturgis owns those?
We do for, they're scheduled to be surplused in the future, but we still own them, and they asked if they could use them.
Do we charge for that?
Not usually, no.
So that's negotiable. Interesting. And available, who has the insurance then if kids are bouncing around in those? Are we covered on that?
Well, I think somebody asked me that this morning. I know Max has provided me with insurance through him. That is something I probably just need to double check on, and I kind of forgot about it. But I will double check before his event next week,
So the
just to
reason,
make sure.
the reason for the bouncy houses is because there will be children with the bowlers or with the fans or
Yeah,
both?
from what I understand, they are, in his description, he put a family-friendly bowling event to register the kids for kids' fall leagues. And then the bowling tournament is kind of a secondary thing. I guess it sounds like they had a bunch of pro bowlers that were coming, and they're going to be putting on a bowling tournament. But I think the stuff for outside is going to be for registering for fall sports leagues. So they're hoping to draw in a lot of local
For the
families.
person who uses the bouncy houses, do they have responsibility for maintaining them or for making sure that they're not broken or something?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, they have to, and they have to have parent signatures for kids that go in there, and I'll make sure to provide that stuff for Max, because if they get hurt, obviously they have to sign, the parents have to sign a waiver, that kind of thing, and I have that form, so I'll make sure to forward that to Max.
I think that's a great idea. Just make sure we're covered.
Yep,
Thank you for that.
I'll follow up on that, yes.
You know, part of the budget appropriation process here for the 2025 budget was, you know, when we were looking at rally and events, that department, and we removed the personnel, we decided that we weren't going to have a full-time rally and events. You know, decision at that time was made to be able, all these additional things that we have that supported all these additional events, that we would probably end up putting those on surplus. And we're in the process of doing that, as Robin points out. So, you know, us providing the bouncy houses for this event works, but at some point here in the near future, a lot of that stuff we won't have anymore. Currently, we maintain all that stuff down at our shop down at 6th Street. And, you know, we have to coordinate with the parties to pick that stuff up. There are some things we're going to keep that have been used historically quite a bit, one of them being the large TV screen, that
Movie
blow-up
screen.
screen. Have you seen that
It's
before?
an inflatable movie.
Inflatable one, so we're going to keep that one because that one's been used before, but the bouncy house is not as much. And part of it is that, you know, we haven't used a lot of them. There's still, some of them are still kind of regular packages, but the longer we maintain them, you know, they only have a shelf life for so long. You move them around, they can get damaged. So is, you know, based on what, you know, the council decided last year was that, you know, let's get what we can out of that stuff, and we're probably moving out of providing those type of material and things for, you know, those type of events. But we still have them
So
right now.
at
so we
this
decided to
point,
use them.
that's just a bonus benefit which may not be very long, possibly.
Any other counselors have any questions, comments? Questions, comments from the galley? Well, with none being heard, do we have a motion?
A motion to approve?
Second.
All those approve? Yes?
Yes. Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous on that one, too. Item 11, reports. 11.1, consider the use of city property for light after loss suicide prevention event at Harley-Davidson Rally Point.
That's me again. We had a group called Journey On Loss Team reach out since September is Suicide Awareness Month. They would like to do an event down at Rally Point on the 13th of September from 5 to 9 p.m. They're going to be doing a candlelight vigil to remember those that they've lost to suicide, and they're going to have a little ceremony honoring those who have been affected. The only thing they've asked is for actual Harley Point. They didn't ask for any kind of street closure or anything, and they would like to use our microphone for the sound system down there.
How about the fee for the use of the point?
Well, they are a nonprofit,
Okay.
and they provided me with a 501c3, so that was another thing. They would like you to waive the fee, if possible.
Members of council have any questions, comments? Anybody from the gallery?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item 11.2, citizens
you.
request from, sorry, Daniel, I'm not going to butcher your last name, from Daniel. And if you could come up, state your name and address in the microphone, please.
Yeah, say that name out loud. Ranello. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Vice President and City Council members. I'm Daniel Granillo, proud resident.
Daniel, I don't think it's on. Push it again.
This is the green button.
Am I on now?
There you go.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Daniel Granillo. I'm a proud resident of Ward 2 here in the city of Sturgis, where I've made my home for the past 3 years. I'm here respectfully to request your permission to allow temporary camping at my residence during the 2026 motorcycle rally, specifically from July 31st next year to Friday, August 21st for up to 19 camping units. Under the current city ordinance, Title 11, Chapter 8, outlines all the rules and regulations regarding temporary residential camping. However, to my surprise, I learned it states I may only have one camping unit for a maximum of 21 days. The only exception is if I had been grandfathered in offering camping continuously since 2012. Then I can have up to 19 camping units. The ordinance does state that if more than one unit is desired, the property owner may apply for a permit through the city council. So I had my wife, my beautiful wife, Christina, call the city this morning to obtain a permit and submit the necessary paperwork, but was told the application does not exist, and is why we're on the agenda tonight. We found this quite compelling considering Title 11, Chapter 8, Section 21 permit was put in effect nearly 4 years ago. I fully understand that implementing a new application process or revising the existing city ordinance may take time, but my hope is that we can leave here tonight with your consent to continue offering temporary camping on our property next year and begin accepting reservations today. I want to assure you we've never had any issues with our guests or neighbors in the past, some of whom are here this evening in support. My property is safe, well-maintained year-round. In fact, the income generated from the rally has allowed us to make meaningful improvements, including a new roof, a new 100-foot sidewalk in front of our home, installing a privacy fence around the property, rebuilding a deteriorated wraparound deck that was hanging on less than an inch of a nail. I'm surprised no one fell through it, and much more. This year, we hosted our first after-rally barbecue, where we invited council members and neighbors from all around the block to join us in fellowship, sharing a meal, socializing, expressing any concerns, and helping us grow in how we manage the event. To be clear, this is not a vacation spot for me, nor a piece of property I bought for profit. It is my home, and my wife constantly gripes that for every $1 I spend, for every $1 I receive from the rally, I spend 20 back into the house. We care deeply about the community and what our neighbors think. In preparation for this request, my wife and I went door to door, collecting 46 signatures from our neighbors around the community, including Jake, the UPS man, and Jason, the postmaster man who delivers our mail. And in doing so, we discovered that we're not the only residents that offers camping for more than one campsite without being grandfathered in. But we are the first needing to seek a permit for relief from this ordinance. In closing, we have a saying at our home, which we affectionately call Buddy's Campsite, named after our dog. Arrive as strangers, leave as buddies. And it's been a delight to host people from around the world, and our guests have become more than our buddies. They've become our extended family. And unfortunately, I had to pause all reservations for next year until this matter gets resolved. And I'm pleading with you to please give us your permission to allow us to continue to offer during the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. And with that, I just want to say thank you for your consideration, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Daniel, I appreciate the invitation. That was a night that I couldn't attend. I would have otherwise, because it would have been nice to just get inside and see what you've done. I have a question. I suppose this has to do with Rick as much, or maybe Jody. I understand that if you provide the campsites, you have to provide bathroom facilities. And so is that, for most people, that would be in their home or a porta potty or something of that nature. And
This year we increased the amount of toilets. We had 2 porta potties in our backyard, in addition to our full bathroom within our home.
And as you know, I had one of my friends who's in your ward who took me around and showed. One of the questions I would have is that with the privacy fence, does that intrude in the alley?
It does not.
I'm just asking you, or maybe that's more of, Jody, do you know, have you seen?
Our privacy fence, I received a permit for, and it was within the setbacks for the fence.
Okay, because it isn't that it was necessarily apparently in the alley, it just was, you took full advantage, and that's good. I mean, you took advantage of the place. Not complaining about that. Just telling you that you used as much as you could, and that's to your advantage. And does our ordinance, and maybe, I don't know who knows the answer to this, if you have a campsite, does that make you a vendor? Does anybody know that?
Hey, Councilor Thomas, this is Aaron here. No, I don't believe it makes you a vendor.
So there's no vendor's license necessary?
No,
okay.
No. Now, if we do a camping permit, what does that entail? But no, I don't think it includes anything on the vendor aspects of it. one of the opportunities here is, I think as Daniel pointed out, anything over one camping unit is considered large scale, up to 19. And when they define a camping unit as one tent, one RV, one maybe pickup with a camper on it, it equals to one unit. So currently, from Title 11, Health and Sanitation, if you have more than one tent, you're in violation of this code. And I don't think that was ever the intent, is to be able to keep it to one unit. And so there is an opportunity here to be able to define what is large scale and what's not large scale. But right now, the ordinance, anything over one is considered large scale up to 19.
We have that all over town.
We do. And that would be, if you, particularly during the rally, if you were to look around, we probably had a lot of people that were in violation of this particular code based on one camping unit. Again, I don't think that was ever the intent. Now, just kind of review the standard based on the policy as approved by council is that, every residential lot is limited to one camping unit for a 21-day camp within a 365-day period, not a calendar year, but a 365-day period as it stands right now. The exceptions to that is if you already have owned the property, that's where they talk about the grandfather non-conforming use. If you own the property since prior to 1 August 2012, and it was being used as a large-scale camping up to 19 prior to that date, and you still maintain continuous ownership of that property, then you could continue underneath the grandfathering clause with this ordinance. But if you're not grandfathered in and you're over one unit, the only way that you can have a camping there over one unit is to get permission from the council through a council permit. When we were reviewing this is when we found out, I don't think we've ever, as Daniel pointed out, I think you are the first to put in the camping request. And so the research that I did working with our team here is that we haven't had one before. And so we have to develop one. And we started working on that last week. But one of the things that came up is, one of the criteria to look at is the property, is it within the 100-year floodplain? And if it's in the 100-year floodplain, there's possible restrictions and limitations. We're still doing some research on it. We just found that out here just recently, but need to do some research on it. Daniel's property, as it stands right now, based on Beacon map, and we got to confirm that that is the most current floodplain map, but as it shows right now, the majority of the property is within the 100-year floodplain. So there's some things that we need to do as we develop a camping permit to make sure that, we provide all the information for you to make a good decision.
And one thing I would add about that 100-year floodplain, we do have a general policy for all of our guests that stays with us. And thank you for bringing that up. I have included that in our guest acknowledgement of risk, that we are in a 100-year floodplain. Respectfully, the rally time frame of the year is the hottest time of the year. And we've only been here for 3 years, so we can't speak to what the weather can do during that time. But we are trying to be as proactive as possible.
I'm assuming that we're going to be discussing this as part of our new committee on ordinances. But that's going to go, that's a 90-day process probably. And so what you're asking is for
Your permission today.
and we don't have a despite the Title 11-08-21, we don't have a permit.
We do not at this point.
Okay. So that's something we could do tonight. The council has that ability.
I was in a floodplain. I owned the house up there on Mount Rodney's for a while in Ward 2, and that was in the floodplain. And I always said, because you're up pretty high, if that house got flooded, the whole town of Sturgis is gone. So, yeah, that 100-year flood deal, I didn't understand why it went that high. I mean, I've lived here all my life, I've never seen water to even get up to the, you know,
I agree with you. There's a lot of spots like that. Unfortunately, we don't control that. You know, the federal government controls that.
Possibly.
I certainly don't want to see, I would like to see you succeed in this. I just don't know what the right route to go is. I like the fact that we have to have a permit for over 19. Your situation is not an issue with your neighbors, but maybe somewhere else there would be an issue, and it'd be nice to have a safety net. That, you know, it'd be nice that the council would have a route to put a stop to a particular situation if there were problems. Not saying that's here. You obviously don't because your neighbors support it. I just don't know what the right route to go is here.
I need to say, I'm agree. I mean, I'm with you. I understand. I was brought. The man that owns the property to the south of you has two buildings, two homes on there that he rents year-round. They're not rally places. He has full-time renters, and he's opposed. So I bring that up on his behalf.
I actually was going to as well.
Did you talk to him?
No, he refuses to talk to me. I can read our very lovely.
He's a stubborn German.
I do have his tenant signatures and support.
Yes, the person in question, the reason we are here is because he complained, and he has complained every year since we purchased the house 3 years ago. And he doesn't even live next to us. I don't even know that he lives in Sturgis.
No, he lives outside. He's a rancher.
He is a landlord. And it's none of my business what he says about us. It's none of my business what he thinks about us. But I have never met the man, and he refuses to answer my phone calls and text messages. So the reason this whole can of worms is even being opened is because of one complaint since 2021. And we have been picked, and when we first moved in when we first bought the house 3 years ago, we were met by the previous code enforcement officer within the first 30 minutes of being in the home. This person clearly does not like us. I learned in my roundabouts that the trench in our backyard, it used to be a creek. This gentleman that got married in 1978 at the courthouse here and has lived here his whole life as well, said that that used to be a creek and is always been a mess down there too. He used to work HVAC, and he's been in every single home around here. He knows what the properties used to look like. So it's my understanding that that is a floodplain because it used to be a creek, and I'm sure it has something to do with water flow as well. But yes, if our home was to be flooded, we need an ark. And Aaron, to address something that you had said, there is some confusion in interpretation. There is a lot of variances with the people that have been grandfathered in prior to 2021, but the 21 days and 365 days, it is not clear that that would be a provision that is grandfathered in. Along, like, the only real provision is the, like, essentially utilities aspect of it from how I'm interpreting it. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a politician. And also the 19 camping units. And there's also some discrepancies as to whether it's 19 camping units or 19 campers. And yeah, I have more to say about all of it, but I want to respect our neighbor. We are good friends with every single one of his tenants that have come by. The current one, Wish Just Luck Today. We make sure that they have parking No one is ever on their lawn.
Eric, I'm gonna ask you, we need to get this whole ordinance thing figured out. It sounds like we have a little bit of work to do.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Eric Davis, City Attorney. I have not really been read in on this entire situation yet. I can tell you public health, safety, welfare, camping during the rally is certainly something that is in the council's prerogative to evaluate. Just sitting here listening, I'm seeing potentially two possible issues. Just the general policy question of, it seems as though this ordinance was created to allow one camping unit for up to 21 days, the grandfather provision and nothing else. If that's still sound public policy in the council's view, then that's one question. The only thing I would have to advise you against would be issuing a permit without any kind of criteria on what the permit should be. I don't think the practice should be, first of all, the council should make a determination of whether it wants to enforce this ordinance or change this ordinance. If the council wants to keep the ordinance the way it is or make other modifications and develop a permit process, my suggestion would be that we kick that over to Aaron and Kevin in the executive branch to allow them to bring that up through staff of what are the public health, safety, welfare concerns. We've obviously gone over them today. I'm not sure that a first stab in a city council meeting is the best way to do that. There are considerations about sanitation, about traffic, about neighbors, about floodplain, and I'm sure a dozen other things. And so that would be appropriate if that is the council's direction with camping. Kick that over to the executive side, develop some recommendations, a report on what a permitting process would look like, and then move forward from there. So I don't think it has to be a long process. We are talking about a complete recodification and also revising ordinances. I think as a general observation, this is good to see. You have some citizens in the community saying, hey, the ordinances aren't serving us, and it seems maybe other people aren't either. So I love that the way that this has been handled, the way that it's been brought to the city council, the way that there's community support behind it. I think what the next step is to kick this over to the committee, to have them discuss that with staff, to identify the key issues, to ensure that the ordinance is what the council wants it to be, and then to allow staff to develop a permitting process so that these kind of requests can be evaluated on pursuant to some general criteria and then pursuant to some lot-specific criteria. So I think there's a way that can be done, that there's a way that can be fashioned through in the next few weeks, month or two, so that people can start making their reservations for next year. But that would be my only caution is against issuing a permit tonight when you don't have an understanding of what the public health, safety, welfare needs are and some sort of criteria by which to evaluate those. Happy to stand by for any questions.
Just a comment. My family's been doing the rally camping since the early 90s, so I guess my opinion's pretty what it is on that. The people that do it, most of them use it to pay their property taxes. And anything left over, they can do whatever, I'm just a comment.
Anybody else?
Tony, I think it is right what Eric said. We have an action in terms of, we see these kinds of things, not just in this, but in several places in the ordinances that need to be looked at and changed. And that might be the best way to do it, and not to make it as quick, make it as quickly as we can, but not just in your case, Daniel, but for every other ordinance that's an issue.
And I think it would also help staff to have a guideline and something to step on too when it comes to this. And I support, I think this is a good deal. I support what you're doing, but I think we need to go through the channels, especially with legal saying, and I'd like to see it, I don't want to see it 6 months, but I think we need to go through their channels with staff and whatnot before we can have the permit. I don't know what everybody else.
At the end of the day, I would like to see a process for a permit, so people like you can do what you want to do. Give.
I appreciate the work you've already done.
Yeah.
Gosh, you got all your neighbors involved and they're okay with it. So, the first step of your stuff is done. We just have to come up with a.
Well, and I think the sooner the better. So the reservation side of things.
I wondered if there's a way to put a timeline on it, but I don't know how that works.
That's
So,
Excuse me. That's why I just came up, was to just offer a suggestion, again, kind of detached from Daniel's specific request. But you know, as we are navigating this, new council, new city administrator, new legal counsel, I guess the process that I would like to see is when something like this is raised with the council from a citizen, that council to provide some sort of direction or instruction to the mayor or to Aaron on the executive side of things and say, you know, we would like to see a report on this in 2 weeks at the next meeting, or in 1 month, 2 meetings from now, and let Aaron and staff do some work, come up with bullet points of these are what the issues are. You can all then visit with your constituents and bring it back. But, you know, Mark, to just your suggestions of if this is important to the council, how do we ensure that it's moving forward? It would be directions towards the executive side to say, you know, if it's possible, do the necessary research, come back and give us a progress report, maybe the draft of a potential ordinance, at least pros and cons, public health, safety, welfare issues that have been flagged by the next council meeting or whenever the council wants to see it. So something like that, a motion would certainly be appropriate.
Aaron, may I ask, how's your month, you got budgets coming at you, is the first meeting in October reasonable, or is that too quick from your side of it? Or other input?
One thing I would add to Eric there is that we do have an ordinance committee. And so, provide that back to us. And, we have been started working on that past, what that process would look like. And that's when we started getting into the floodplain stuff. There was a lot more information that we had to do some research on to determine what is the information that we need to check the box on. So, we're making, a good recommendation when it comes down to it. But I think once we do that research, pass that over to the ordinance committee, have them take a review of it. That's what they're there for. And then at that point, at some point, it would come back to the council. Do I think by early October we can provide a report? It would be challenging, but we can do that. I mean, obviously you saw we have an aggressive plan for our budget. The ones that we're doing on Monday, the next meeting, we have to have that all done this week because we have legal and finance to review them on Monday. So, all of September, I was kind of joking with Jody and Rick when we were doing a mountain bike ride that September is a pretty busy month. But if you give us that time frame, maybe going in early October, we could have something that allow us to do due diligence and kind of going through and looking at what all that would entail. And again, the big thing was the floodplain piece of it. I've seen some copies out there. We've come to kind of did a review, kind of looked at maybe what that process would look like, what information would be contained in it. Part of it's already contained in our ordinance. Part of it we could maybe improve on that. But the floodplain is the piece of it I need to take a look at. And what we've seen right now is, if you're a tent, that's considered like a temporary structure based on, if you look at our Code 34's flooding, if you look at FEMA and the National Association for Flood Insurance, they have some regulations out there that if you're going to have a tent in a 100-year floodplain, it has to be elevated, it has to be anchored. And their recommendation is that you would not have tents, in a floodplain. I guess part of that's going back to what recently just happened in Texas, even though it'd been there for a long time, but ultimately it was one event where you had that kind of tragedy. So part of it is that we can, as a policy perspective, come up with what the council wants, but there are some national laws or regulations that we have to be aware of and I think implement into our ordinance, whatever that may be.
The rest of the council would be comfortable with, I don't know if the first meeting in October is reasonable. What about the second meeting to have a report back and see if we could advance this at the second meeting? Thoughts on that?
Does that work for you?
Even the first meeting of November, just to be, because by then, second reading's done with the budget, right? I remember right?
That would be the October 6th meeting, correct?
That's the first reading for the budget, right?
October 20th.
Is that a motion?
I'd make a motion to have a report back to us by at the October 20th council meeting. Is that how we want to word that? You good with that, Aaron?
Oh, absolutely.
I got a first by Mark,
Second.
second by Jim. Motion to approve.
You wanna-
Aye.
Yes.
Those that oppose? Well,
Thank you.
all right, we'll be in touch. Item 11.3, 2026 budget hearing. Looks like Rick's gonna start us off. First item is the airport.
Aaron, are you, anything to start off, or you want me
No,
to?
go ahead, Rick.
Okay, first one up is the airport budget, and it remains largely unchanged for 2026. I think we've kind of dialed in on some of our costs. We've got them fairly well identified, and so we did not make a change at this point in time in the 2026 budget. We do have some outstanding items, as mentioned earlier tonight, with the recodification. One of the things that we're going to be looking at is adjusting some of our lease rates. You approved 2 leases tonight at 12 cents a square foot for those hangar leases. We're going to probably be looking at raising that to get more in line with the market value. When we look at other general aviation airports, for example, Spearfish, they're slightly higher than what we are, and they've got a tiered system for whether or not the hangar is used for commercial purposes or if it's solely for owner recreational. That doesn't amount to a significant amount of money. Probably the biggest revenue generator that we have is by far the fuel sales. Industry average for a fixed base operation airport is somewhere around 15% markup on fuel. Right now, we range anywhere from 40 to 45%. So we're slightly higher. Gas prices, depending on what we sell, whether it's avgas or jet fuel or whatever, those markups fluctuate anywhere from 0 to 30 cents from, I get daily updates on the prices of fuel, so they fluctuate daily. Some of our other fuels that we get, like from Cenex, are a weekly fluctuation, but aviation fuel, I get one of those price reports every day, so we watch that. We know where our margin is and what we're selling per gallon, and we try and buy the fuel, of course, as cheap as we can get, or when it's trending down, and then sell it at our price. So one of the other things that Aaron and I have discussed and we're going to continue to look at is the ability, perhaps in the future, that maybe the airport would become a enterprise fund, and that we would take that money that we're making in fuel sales and we would keep it there, and that in turn then could make our purchases, as you saw tonight in the removal of the claims. I mean, we spend, when we get a 5,000 to 6,000 gallons of fuel, it's $15,000 to $20,000. So if we had that in an enterprise fund that was there to continue to reuse that versus pulling that out of the general fund, certainly could be a benefit for everybody. But other than that, really everything else has remained kind of steadfast in that budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on any of the particular line items.
Rick, have we, it seems to me that the manager was questionable as to return, is continuing?
Currently we have a third party, we offer a contract to a third party to manage the airport. That contract goes through 2026. So at the end of 2026, going into 2027, we'll either have to put out a request for proposal, regardless of what the current airport manager decides. We've got to put that out and basically take bids.
So we're a ways away from that.
Yes.
Any other questions for Rick on the airport? Anybody in the crowd? All right, moving on to engineering.
Engineering, I got a bunch of easy ones for you tonight. Engineering, of course, in the 2025 budget, we for the most part, did away with that department. We removed all of the expenses associated with the employees. And now all we really maintain is we have a $50,000 placeholder for professional fees, which is when we hire out our third-party consultants. And then we have a bill that we have to pay to the USGS for our flood monitoring. So far to date in 2025, we've expended just under, right at about 40% of what we had budgeted of that $50,000. So it's a pretty comfortable margin. And again, that's going to be driven by, for the most part, when we receive things, or if for example, with the camping, if we have to have them research some of the floodplain and issue a floodplain development permit, we would hire them to do that. Most of the large capital projects that we have, like the well and the sewer trunk lines or the airport projects, all of the engineering is included inside of those loan packages. So what we're talking about is strictly the in-house engineering that we would do. And again, we don't really know what that is leading into it. It's all, for the most part, driven by development, where we would have to hire a third party. So again, those are really the only two line items we have. We don't anticipate making any changes to them at this time. So 2026 looks pretty good for that budget as well.
Any questions, comments, council? Anybody in the crowd? All right, move on to street lighting.
Street lighting is another fairly easy one. We don't have a whole lot in there. We have our utilities and then our repairs and maintenance. Currently, we budget about $143,000 for utilities. That's for the most part all Black Hills Power and Light. We do have a little bit of West River Electric up on the hill to the north, but mostly that's all of the street lights. When we get new street lights, we pay a flat rate every month for them. We're responsible. A lot of people don't know, so this is a good opportunity. We're the city, as far as maintenance, we're only responsible for the maintenance on all of the galvanized poles, the metal poles, which are primarily Lizelle Junction and Main Street. Excuse me. We have one new subdivision out by Murray Addition that has galvanized poles, and largely everywhere else in town where there's a street light here on the corner attached on a wooden pole. That's the Black Hills Power and Light takes care of that for us. All we do is pay a monthly fee for that light. And so they count up all the lights we have and bill us for those monthly. And that's what that utility in the street lighting, that and our traffic signals. Repairs and maintenance, we budget about $30,000 a year. Typically what that does is that allows us to buy streetlight heads, or if we have any repairs that we need to make in our traffic signals. A lot of times here the other day, the signal at 4th and Lizelle, there was a lightning strike nearby and it took out some of the fuses and some of the computer boards. So we do have to have a certain number of them on hand that we can go switch those. Otherwise the traffic signal doesn't work. But that seems to be still a good number this year. We haven't priced any heads out. I haven't yet this year because going into last year, when they asked us to make only necessary purchases, we didn't purchase any light heads, so it's been a little bit. And I think when I asked Marty this morning, we have 3 light heads in our inventory now. But I do notice that we've got some LED lights going out when they turn purple. That means they're going out. And we got a couple on Junction and one on Lizelle that just turned purple as well. So we've probably got those 3 heads spoken for. And we like to, like I said, have a few of those on hand. And as the lights go out, the incandescent lights, we have been swapping those over to LED. Just hopefully they're supposed to last a lot longer. And we should get our money out of them. Unfortunately, that's not always a given. So again, pretty easy budget on the street lighting side of things.
Okay, any questions for Rick on street lighting? about in the crowd? No? Okay. Aaron, it looks like insurance is next, or do you want to do dispatch first?
I'll do the insurance.
Okay.
This one will probably come in front of the council again. Basically, our methodology is this: we kind of use the same percentages that had been used in the past. And it was for that first number up there under workman's comp was take what you budgeted and add 5%. And then on the insurances down below, I think we used 3% on that first one on workman's comp, and then the rest of it was 5%. Our new HR director, Carrie, is actually doing a deeper dive that she started this week, and we're hoping that and should get some information on a more concrete where we sit on it, what we spent for 2025, and then get a better indication of maybe what that cost will be for going into 2026. You can look at 2024. We budgeted 113 on the 4160, that activity line, workman's comp and unemployment, and we end up spending about 108,000. This year we've budgeted 117. We just completed June, so we'll have a better understanding where that sits here in the next couple of days on what we spent against that here year to date. We just took that 3% and went up to 120, but we'll validate that number. We'll probably bring this particular insurance one back towards later in September. So you move down in insurance, the same thing. Looking at a 5% increase. The one where I have a little bit more certainty and feel for it is those number 6 and 7, the supplemental insurance. Currently, we have our supplemental insurance through HUB, and these are activities with some of our events that we've had, some of the events that we've had with the rally, and some of these things are above and beyond. There are some indications that, because we have our insurance through SDPAA, and we get our supplemental for HUB, and that was roughly around $8,000. The non-rally events is probably a close number, but we do need to validate 1 through 5 and ensure that those numbers seem appropriate. Any of your questions on insurance?
None from council? How about the crowd? All right, we'll move on to dispatch. Chief?
Good evening, Mr. President and Council. Dispatch, I'll give you a little history of dispatch. We, as you may or may not know, we contract with Meade County Sheriff's Office to provide dispatch services. How them fees are figured out every year is the 911 funds that come in monthly. They're taken and paid, the bills paid off the top with that right away with all the funds extended from that. We then split the fees between the Sheriff's Department, Police Department, Somerset Police Department, and Faith. Sturgis and Meade County is at 40%, and then the other 20% is split between Faith and Somerset. So visiting with the sheriff, I think we're set at 175 on there. We're not anticipating any increases this year through dispatch. We're hoping there's going to be more 911 funding coming in to help keep them costs low. They got some changeover with staffing that's going to be less, but yet they're also running short-staffed as everybody else, so there may be some overtime. But overall, the Sheriff's Department's hoping that we'll be keeping the costs the same. And I'll stand by if you have any questions.
Anybody in council have questions for Chief? Anybody in the crowd? All right, well, we will move on to the Wiggins Dunn Trust.
Hi, everybody. I was asked this morning to give you some information about the Dunn Trust. I've never been involved with this part of it before, but we have records in the library of what the money is. And so Aaron and I were talking about the interest on that, and why it was set at 12.2, we're not quite sure. I think it was probably just an estimate. The money in the trust mainly is in a CD, and so depending on whatever rate we get, that money changes for the length of the CD. It currently is in a 13-month term. It came due in March of this year, and it had generated that 15,283, which I think is up there. There a little bit of an update on the 2026 interest. The current CD will come due in April, and it should be about $12,400 is the interest that we'll get off of that. So the money that's not in a CD is in a money market account, which is generating some interest for us as well. The purpose of the trust is it was created through the estate of Alice Wiggins Dunn. It was created in 1993. It's an ongoing fund to generate income for supplemental projects for the library. The trust states that this is additional funding and it shall not be used to offset the income which should be received by the library from the various taxing authorities who contribute to the continued operations. The library board has used this money in the past for capital improvements. The last time money was used was November 19 when we did the City Hall remodel. The library paid $178,230 for our share of the remodel. So that's what this money is used for. And so, as far as what it's actually going to generate next year, it will be up to whatever the market says and whatever the best deal we can get on a CD is, really. Yeah, any questions about that?
Anybody have any questions for
I
Chris?
think I asked this question in one of the meetings, but can
Yeah.
that be used for summer reading program?
The board wants the money to be used for capital expenditures. So anytime it's being spent on other stuff, then you're reducing the amount of money that we have for big projects in the future, and that's the direction that they've wanted it to go. It can't be used to replace income that the city is expected to provide. So it's a little bit of a gray area, I would say.
So like when the door, that door on the south side was a problem, was that a capital improvement? Or could it have
Well, I would say that being a city building, then the city would be expected to cover the cost of that. I think.
I was just curious if that would
Well, and
apply.
I think that's also, been up for debate with the way the building fund is set up right now. So it's some stuff we pay for, some stuff we don't pay for. And
I see you're
I can't give you any criteria on that because
having
I
sat
don't know
in
of
that
any.
in that meeting for a while. I understand that you're in kind of a tough situation there because last year, for instance, when there wasn't a lot of money, you had to make things do, and you did. So congratulations on that. But I was just curious, having thought about that with that door, which was a expensive venture, would that have been capital improvement?
I wouldn't say that's capital improvement. Would say that's maintenance. I would think.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Anything else?
Nice
Chris?
problem to have.
Well, when it comes, being able to give, almost 200,000 to help out the remodel is a great thing to be able to do. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
There's just a couple of things to talk about in closing for the first part of this budget hearing, just from my perspective. One of the things that we're continuing that you guys started last year was having the department heads brief their budget. And, in the past, for, a decade or so, the department heads were not involved in that presentation. In some cases, they weren't always involved in really understanding where the numbers came from. And when I was on council, I'd ask some of those questions, and that's not something they were necessarily appraised of. Even during this budget process for 2026, working for the department head on some budgets, some of this time is some of the first times they've really experienced this. I think that's a good thing. The intent is for the people that are executing the budget, they're the ones that are responsible for that line item. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's you that set the priorities to what you appropriate in those departments in each of those activities. And it's important for them to be able to communicate what their needs are, what their wants are. One of the things that I've communicated to them is that we'll probably never have enough revenue to match all our needs and wants. And you have to be able to communicate back to the council on where your priorities are and where we can accept some risk. And then understand that year in and year out, we can't always accept the same risk. So we're going to have to move that around a little bit because we're always trying to stay in a point where we're executing an effective budget that provides the service, meets the expectations of the council, and more importantly, the residents of Sturgis. And so I think that's a good lessons learned from last year is to continue having our department heads, those people that are responsible for it, actually sit in front of you and talk about that particular budget. Because at the end of the day, they'll be held accountable for the execution and staying within that particular budget line. And so I would just, over the next couple of years, we'll continue to get better at it. It's my first process going through a municipality budget at this, from a staff perspective and putting those together and same with our department heads. Now, there's some changes we're making that we've talked with the mayor about is, for example, one of them that came up tonight was talking about buildings. In the past, we've had a buildings person that was responsible for 3 buildings, the community center, this building, and the armory. And then the rest of the buildings, we had basically budgets, maintenance and repair with each of those other departments. We're going to, for 2026, we'll have that all underneath under one public works, underneath the parks, and they will have responsibility for all the buildings. And when we get to the buildings budget, you'll see expenditures in there that we anticipate for 2026 across all the buildings. And instead of having just one person that's responsible for 3 buildings, we'll have public works, specifically the parks department, that has a plethora of talented people, HVAC, constructions, electrical, that can help us maintain our buildings. So we'll implement, job orders, for people from those particular facilities can submit a job order to Public Works to be able to address whatever their problem, and they can assign the right people to do it. And if it's above our capability or capacity, we can always outsource that out to somebody to be able to fix that. So it's about trying to get all our budgets into one. There are some other things that we've seen in our budget in terms of, one example that I saw a question on this was our copier leases. Because if you look at it, in some budgets, we're taking it out of this particular activity. I think it was materials and supplies and materials, I believe. And another department was coming out of rentals. And, why is that? Why is it coming out of 2 different activities, even though it's separate departments? Well, that's how we appropriated the money back last year. But when we appropriate last year, that kind of continues a trend of what we've done in the past. So it's an opportunity for us to be able to make sure, is that the right activity to pay that particular expenditure? And then review that and make sure that we're consistent across all the departments. I think that'd be much easier for you, much easier for the public, much easier for us too, to be able to manage it that way. So we're always looking for continuous opportunities to improve the process. And again, we're making improvements from 24 to 25, 25 to 26, and we'll continue that into the future. But that's kind of where we sit. So, next week we'll go through a lot more budgets, and we'll have a lot more of our department heads that will present that to you. So, I look forward to the opportunity. It's an opportunity I felt from a citizen perspective. And when I sat on the council, it was always difficult to understand, what problems do we have and what should be the priorities. This gives you an opportunity to kind of hear it from the direct person that's responsible for it, to have a good appreciation of what that looks like. So, I'm pretty excited about this process. So, pending your questions.
Okay. Any other questions on those 6 items for staff members? How about from the crowd? Okay, we have no reason tonight for exec session, so I guess we are looking for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Those opposed? All right, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you, guys.